Welcome back to the podcast. You're Blocking the TV, season 2, episode 3. Josh, Alex here with you. And, there has been a lot that has happened in the last couple of weeks since we last were with you. And, there's just a lot to talk about across the sports world today. Alex, what's pressing for you right now as we get into this Friday morning?
I think the funniest thing to me right now is the MLB baseball playoffs, being that you think it's such an advantage to have a home game in a sport that doesn't have a clock that you're trying to fight against. You get that last AB, and don't have the records in front of me, but pretty sure it's been maybe one home win over the last couple series between the division series and the championship series. That has stood out major factor that just something that I don't think we've seen before. I also just think the parity around all of the sports right now it's just plain fun. It's just a good time to be a sports fan, and then you just have that blue blood. We'll get into this later, but those pesky Dodgers, man, making another run. So a lot going on in sports, like you said, a lot of fun things. Not short on things to talk about this week.
Yeah, to me, it's amazing when you look at payrolls and these teams in Major League Baseball that have the highest ones. And the Mets basically are at the top, I think. And they don't make the playoffs this year. A huge disappointment, obviously, for them. And then you look at the Yankees and the Dodgers, who are sort of like, the polar. I shouldn't say polar. I mean, they're not opposite. They're the same idea. There is no salary cap in baseball. We're going to buy all the best talent. We're going to have a huge payroll. And yet you look at the Dodgers, and the Dodgers look like they're primed for another World Series win. And the Yankees are out of the playoffs, and somehow with that stacked team. And again, I mean, they've both dealt with injuries this year.
Right.
And you can use that as an excuse, but I just don't think it's valid when you have the ability at the trade deadline to just go get somebody to replace your injured guy, and you're not worried about it. And when you've got such a stacked team that a couple injuries should not be the difference for you, when you're going up against teams that have like some has-beens, some never will be's, maybe a star or two, that's most rosters.
Right.
And you've got 3 to 4 guys that might be Hall of Famers on your team.
Not only Hall of Famers, but guys that have been through the gauntlet of a postseason, that know what it takes, that know how to slow their heart rate down, ice in their veins. The Dodgers, candidly, win another division, but don't look that great. They're going, oh, there's beatable. There's some magic in the air with the Brew Crew. There's some magic in the air with the Mariners. These teams that can make runs, and what do you know? They just know how to churn out innings, put up some crooked numbers, make some defensive plays, and their pitchers just absolutely lights out.
Their rotation right now in the playoffs has just been elite. And I mean, they should be. We thought that they were an elite rotation in the first place, but as you said, they had some letdowns that made you think, okay, well, there's some chinks in this armor. This is a vulnerable team. To me, that what I was going to really say is that the difference is the way that franchise is managed and the manager on the field in that dugout versus the Yankees. I think that's the difference. I think Dave Roberts is an elite manager. I think Aaron Boone is trash. He's just not good.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it.
Vibe, the team takes on a coach's identity, especially in baseball when you play, over 150 games. You're making it. You take on that personality. I thought the Dodgers' ability to fight back, seeing Judge get that big home run off the pole, I thought, okay, maybe they're turning things around. But man, when you have a manager that is just so temperamental, in my opinion, and just doesn't
petulant. I mean, he when he's in the dugout, he just looks like he's just crying about everything.
Right.
Every time something doesn't go his way. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but he's got to be about the worst when it comes to making challenges.
Right.
And then complaining. I mean, and you look at the challenges that he makes, and it's like, okay. I mean, what were you thinking there? Like, 100%. that wasn't super close, and I just, you've got a cerebral guy on the other side and Dave Roberts, and you've got Aaron. But I don't know how that guy continues to be employed with the Yankees organization. I really don't. I just and I've been vocal about how I'm just such an anti-Yankee, but that franchise can do so much better than that. When you're going to pay 350 million or whatever it is per year in salary to players, and you're going to parade a guy like that out there, this isn't the NBA. In the NBA, you can parade a bunch of stars out there and they can win sort of regardless of who the coach is. In Major League Baseball, it just does not fly.
Well, and you can hide behind them too. If you're letting LeBron take the last shot, who's going to take the brunt of that? Reddick or LeBron? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the first half of every sports show is going to be, man, LeBron's washed. It's not going to be Reddick. They're going to, LeBron runs that show. He runs the rotation. He runs when people come in and out. Reddick is, trying to take over and little things like that. But in baseball, it's big personalities where you're making massive moves, pinch hitting. And like you said, when you're that petulant and you're just sitting behind and smirking at every call and throwing hissy fits, that's the identity that your team takes on. And whether you like it or not, while we still have human umpires, they're going to read off that. You might miss that borderline call. You're not going to get the call on the black. And it really can turn a game on its head. So yeah, Josh, it's been great to be a sports fan. Got to give a quick shout out to the wife, birthday today, letting me do a little podcast, action, talk some sports. But she is the real quarterback behind the Pacheco madness here, keeping us all in line. So happy birthday to Kel. Thanks for putting up with me watching a hockey game on my phone while watching Thursday night football on the TV, while arguing with the kids what game's on tonight. Constant sports action. I've got her on fantasy football this year. She's making moves. She hates it. She wanted to put in the chat during the draft, please do not send me a trade request. I'm not adding and removing players. This is my team. And she's top of the league right now, of course, because that's just how it works in fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I had one guy going on Thursday Night Football last night, and historically speaking, I have been a slave to projections, and I just trust the projections of whatever app I'm using. And so right now I have a team in a Yahoo league and a team in an ESPN league, and sometimes it feels like they're. I mean, I like the way that ESPN does it because they have the boom or bust.
Sure.
So they assign a percentage of, 26% boom, as in like he's going to do even better than what we're projecting. And then like this percent chance of him doing worse, not worse than projected, but like worse than like this low end. And so that is helpful. And at the same time, like sometimes you just look at the writing on the wall with the team and you're like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, he might be projected this, but there's no reason to think that he's going to get that. And so when I get into the year, when I was a younger fantasy football guy, I would be making waiver wire pickups. I'd be losing guys, injuries aside. I'd be like, well, yeah, this guy was projected to have a good year. We're 3 weeks in. He looks like he sucks. So I'm dropping him. And then, of course, ends up rebounding and having a reasonable year in line with projections. And I just was too quick to pull the trigger on that. And I'd end up with a bunch of guys that, even though they had a couple good weeks, they end up regressing back to, what they should be. And so I started trusting the average, or trusting the projection, and just trying to be more patient with a team. And unfortunately, there's just two extremes there, right? You have to be willing to say, I'm going to call bullshit on this. I don't think he's going to do it. And I'm going to win my league by making decisions like this. To start last night, Kenneth Gainwell, nice, in a running back spot. I started him in one of my flex spots actually, but I looked at that and I was like, he has some value. He's going to get utilized in the passing game for that Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And they're playing the Bengals. The Bengals look terrible. And then the Bengals are starting Joe Flacco for the first time after he comes over, practice for like a week with the Bengals. I mean, first of all, he's got one more team in the AFC North to play for, in the
Hey,
Steelers.
three
Um,
tutties.
talk about a journeyman, but yeah, his performance last night, he looked, outstanding. But I start Kenneth Gainwell, and I'm like, okay, Jalen Warren's going to be okay, but they've had a little bit of a split there. And what do you know? Jalen Warren has a game, like an unbelievable, like I think he had like 25 touches or something dumb like that. And Gainwell has 5 touches he scored 2.5 points for me. So that's the thing. I make those decisions and then I have to live with them.
The other thing that ESPN does well is they show you, like, for an offensive player, they put the matchup and then put their defensive rank right
Mm-hmm.
next to it.
They
So
do.
you can
Yeah.
look at those algorithms and projections. What I look at is the matchup. Is my wide receiver going against number 31? And is it number 31 overall, or are they number 31 against the pass? You start to
Right.
really dig into those numbers, and those are those one percenters that can, win or lose you a week.
Yep. Absolutely.
Playoffs or not.
Yep, absolutely. In that particular league, and he was the only guy I had going. That's in my Yahoo league. We have 3 flexes.
Okay.
So you got 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, and 3 flex positions. And I haven't had a lot of production. I'm one of those guys that drafted Jerry Jeudy. And I mean, he's just like, that offense is so bad that Jerry Jeudy he's just been almost uninvolved. Wish I had David Njoku, I mean, but yeah, it is what it is. It's a long season though. And I think I'm 3-3 in that league. And so by no means out of it, because in fantasy and in the NFL, you don't have to win every game.
You do not. You do not. Most times you don't. Most years I win, go 12-4. I'm out in the first round because that's just how the cookie crumbles. You got to have a well-balanced team with guys that are fighting in week 16 and 15 to make a run.
Yep. And the reality of it is you have to be able to say, this was just a bad week for all of my good guys. And that isn't a realistic representation of what I should expect in the future. And I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to, and even with that, I'm not going to panic because one of my flex guys had a down game. He was only projected, I think, 8 points. So I'm down 5-ish versus my projection. Any other one of the guys on my roster could go off and more than make up for that. And that's it. Usually for me, I'm on the other end of that where I'm projected to win. And then so-and-so that I'm going against has like 3 guys that score 40 and they forgot to sub this guy out and he's, not in, or he's, on the IR, but he still beats me because of that. Just unfortunate luck. I'm cursed is what I'm saying. So anyway, enough of that. Let's get into it. So question that I have for you, there's a lot right now, and we've had a lot in the last couple of years with this, and I have my opinions of where this is coming from, but we're seeing it more and more. But firing a head coach at a major college football program mid-season, for or against, what's the benefit?
Absolutely hate it. It drives me crazy. You look at the tenure. The big one that stands out is the Penn State firing. Definitely understand, hey, going to UCLA, a winless program, maybe had 100 people in the stands that actually paid for a ticket. The rest, they probably opened the gates and were holding, had some sign flippers saying, please come in and make, the stadium a little bit more full on TV. I remember that when the Avs were having their worst season. I had a buddy that worked for them, and every night was like, hey, I've got 8 free tickets because, the Avs were getting, they looked bad on TV. Had to fill the lower bowl at least. Just fill the lower bowl, move down. I think it just sets a bad precedent. I feel like the boosters, the new students that are only there for 4 years are easily calling for firings. There is no tenure in sports. When I look at some of the head coaches that have been long respected, they're the longest tenured coach is, if they're at 10 years, that's an eternity. So you're looking at these coaches at programs that have developed an identity that, hey, sports is not a given. If it was, we'd have the same 5 teams just rotating, or each team would take a turn. We'd have a participation trophy, and give points out to those top programs, and they just remain at the top. So while I think there is definitely some cause for concern with, hey, this coach isn't working out, we need some new blood. The quick way that they're pulling the trigger now, it feels like if you go on a 2 or 3 game losing streak, it's over. You might as well pack your bags. On top of that, when you talked about, is there a benefit to it? What did Franklin get paid out? $49 million to get fired. I mean,
Well,
can you imagine?
that's not the whole story there. If he goes and gets another job, that gets mitigated
Right. But at
significantly.
the same time, how would you feel as a coach? You don't have any loyalty at all. You're like, hey, if I go on a losing streak, I'll wipe my tears, the 49 million, and then decide, do I want to keep coaching? I still think it's just wild how many coaches. Pete Carroll looks absolutely amazing running out on the NFL field, but you're just like, you are in your late 70s, my friend.
He's still getting physical in practice with those guys.
Yeah,
These are NFL players.
You look at Belichick, you're like, how quickly are these guys, going to pass after? That's all they know. They just know the X's and O's on the sideline, working late hours. I saw, I'm going on a tangent here, but coaching gets me fired up. They pulled a bunch of top Power 5 conference coaches, asking them how much sleep they get on a nightly basis. The average was about 3 to 4 hours for a lot of the coaches. So they're up, burning the midnight oil, not burning it with their families. They're looking at game tape. They're looking at all the different insights and analytics that we have now with their film departments. You do all that work just to make it through a half a season, or, a season and a half, and then you have to build up your recruits again. And it's messy. Maybe that's my boomer take now. I think if you would have asked me this question 15 years ago, like, heck, I want to him losing streak. He's trash. Get him out of here.
That's really the source of this question is, and partially because of the N that I'm wearing on this hat, one of the guys that is being talked about as a replacement for James Franklin, Matt Rule at Nebraska, because he, a Penn State alum, is very close with Penn State athletic director Matt Kraft. I just think be careful, how just think you have to be realistic. Like, yes, you have the funding, and we know at this point so much of it is funding. If you've got NIL funding, I take a look at Indiana. They just got a big boost from Mark Cuban, who has historically, he's a sports guy, but historically has never given to the athletic department at Indiana.
Right.
And he is an alum, obviously. Otherwise, why would he be attracted? But he meets with Curt Cignetti and decides, after meeting with him, hey, we're both from Pittsburgh. We're similar guys. We're simpatico here. I think I am going to go ahead and make a large contribution. And I don't know what that contribution was, but you're talking about a multi-billionaire in Mark Cuban. So when you get that funding, you are able to be competitive. Indiana historically terrible at football. And now all of a sudden, I would say, and I think most pundits would agree, they're top 3 in the Big Ten in football. And their basketball program is in the crapper.
Yeah.
They're a blue blood basketball program.
What does that lead you to believe who's actually pulling the strings at these universities?
Well, see, and that's the thing, is that you've got donors. I think one of the biggest donors for Penn State is Pagula, the owner of the Bills. And the rumor was that he really wanted James Franklin to hire Brady away from the Bills as the new OC. Franklin didn't want to do that. And various other conflicts internally with James Franklin, where, basically he was taking the rope that they were giving him and he was making a noose. And then, so they were ready for, you have a 3-game losing streak. It's not the 3-game losing streak, first of all. You lose to Oregon at home. Oregon is, they're at least a top 10 team, right? I mean, no question. That's not as big of a deal. And then you turn around though, and you lose to UCLA at home, and then you lose to Northwestern. My issue is you look at UCLA's record, and sure, yeah, I mean, they just fired their coach. They are a program that is an absolute mess. But are they untalented? No. Nico Iamleva was a couple of years ago the most highly touted quarterback in the country.
Right.
He's their quarterback. I think he's an elite player. And you can't discount what happens sometimes when a coach gets fired midseason for that locker room. An interim guy takes over and just sparks something. It might be a flash in the pan, might not be long term, but it changes something. And so, I mean, if you're Penn State, can you lose to them? No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that's a bad loss, but nonetheless, UCLA for like Nebraska now, we got to go to the Rose Bowl and play UCLA. That was a game that looked like a sure win, and I don't think it is anymore. And not because I think UCLA is playoff bound or anything crazy like
Did
that.
you watch the UCLA game?
I didn't watch the whole thing.
I feel like a lot of teams, especially in football, when it's play by play, they pull out all the tricks. So all the trick plays, all the gadget plays, we're going to leave it all on the table. We have nothing to lose. Haven't won a game. Let's go ahead and see if we can go upset a top power. I don't know how much UCLA has left for the rest of the season to get up for a Nebraska or another team.
You might be right.
For that Penn State game, it was all here. Here's my hand. I'm going all in. If we lose, we're supposed to. But if we win, you know, what a win for our program. Let's lift our offensive coordinator, Neuheisel, up on the shoulders. Let's make a big to-do about it. And for a program,
yeah, and that's the other thing. He's your brand new. He had like 48 hours to prep for Penn State, and he goes in and takes them apart. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, he threw the kitchen sink at him, but it's hard for Penn State because that was their first win. You're playing an 0-4 team at the time, and you're their first win at home. Ugh, that stings, especially on the heels of a tough one against Oregon, because of course that was a good game. Penn State was in that game to the very end. And then you lose to Northwestern, who the question with Northwestern is, I mean, just how talented are they really? I mean, they every year they've got maybe a couple guys that might be NFL players, but like depth on that roster, they are a smart kid school. And
maybe we read into this too much, but I can't believe I'm defending Penn State now, going, you know, cross-country game after an emotional loss to Oregon. There was a lot going against them. They should be a tougher team, but they're still kids, for goodness sake, looking at them. And then you go into Northwestern, and they're going, oh, we smell blood too. Well, sure. UCLA beat them? Yeah, let's rile them up. They fired up the troops the right way. I think it's very easy when you look at Ohio State. Losing to Michigan, unranked Michigan having their number there, but they're not going to just give up on their coach. I'm sure there were plenty of people calling for the coach's head.
Well, and I mean, that Ohio State example is great because not only did they not give up on their coach, they didn't give up on their season, and then they go and win a national championship.
Right.
So, I mean, who feels better, Michigan or Ohio State? Right. But the other thing for me, and this is the thing that they're not talking about as much as the losses themselves, is you lose Aller, your star quarterback, your multi-year star quarterback. It's hard to adjust to that, even though that, I mean, this is a big time roster. This is a, you know, many millions dollar roster for Penn State. They should be able to put somebody else in there who can get the job done. I just think in this day and age, when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal, and we've talked about this and the lack of regulation, they're trying to regulate it. Those regulations just don't have any teeth. Nobody is taking them seriously. And so I think when you fire a coach mid-season, you get ahead in the coaching search, sure. But you can't hire a sitting college coach in season. You're not going to be able to hire a sitting NFL coach in season. So who are you going for? And how much of an advantage does that really give you versus The disadvantage of now, unless you get lucky and your team rallies around the interim guy, you're just going to have a bunch of guys jumping into the portal as soon as the window opens.
Right.
And the window opens, I think, within it's like fairly soon after a coach gets fired. So it's so easy to lose. I mean, you could lose your whole roster. It's not likely. I mean, you've got guys that are loyal to Penn State, but you've got less and less of that school loyalty given the nature of things today. And I just think you can't take that for granted. And that's why, to me, those coaches, I think, deserve a little bit more runway. If he doesn't get it done the rest of the year, if he loses those 3 games and then finishes 7-5, yeah, sure, fire him. But let him see what he can do the rest of the year, because it's such a hard job. I don't think there is a more difficult coaching job today in sports than being a Power 4 college football coach, because it's not like in the NFL where, I mean, you've got guys that are going into free agency, all that, but like, it's a known number. It's not, well, potentially my whole roster. And the reality is, as we've seen with some of these programs that have lost their coach, they immediately start guys are dropping like flies. And it's so hard, because you have to re-recruit your existing team. And then you've got to figure out, who am I going to bring in to make my team better? And oh, by the way, unless you have the budget that from the donors, do you really have enough? Can you miss on a guy? Can you have a guy that is, and like the example, and we talk about it as Nebraska fans, you look at like Elijah Pritchett, who we got from Alabama. He was a 4 or 5-star recruit out of high school, was a player there, but like wasn't a star there, but has certainly the ability. And you bring him in, and he's supposed to be a boost to your offensive line, and he hasn't even started every game. And he's had some off the field issues and some issues in practice and disciplinary type stuff. But like, they paid him, I think, probably $500,000 to come play. So when you have a more limited budget and you're trying to compete with other Big Ten teams, you can't miss on that guy. And so then beyond that, you also have, and I think this gets into pro sports a little bit, where you've got a player that you've invested a lot of money in, whether he looks like he's the best guy for that spot or not, you've got a lot of pressure to play him anyway. And so that's where the coaches, they have to try to manage this whole thing. And then at the same time, they've got people up above them and a lot of noise that's telling them, no, you gotta stick with that guy. Put a lot of money into him.
Opening Pandora's box. I think the biggest thing here is how many questions are left unanswered, and then how the ripple effect. When you look at a coach for Nebraska, who Nebraska's getting right back in that top 25 conversation, making a name in the Big Ten, you're going, man, the big guys just won't quit, and you know that they're pursuing Rule hard. And it'll be an interesting next couple of weeks as we get into football playoff talk and seeding and where teams line up. But yeah, overall, I think it's a terrible move. I hate it as both a fan, outside looking in, and then also looking at individual programs. The last thing I'll say on that is you look at Jay Norvell coming in to be the savior of CSU, the air raid offense, and just what an absolute joke of a program right now. And you look at it, and then they come out and they just lay a thumping on Fresno State. They were 7.5-point underdogs, end up winning. I think it was 48-21. And that's a coach that you just, hey, one, CSU can't afford to let go of them until January. They don't have the funds, but also, hey, let's play it out. We're not going to be a playoff team anyway. We just need to make a bowl. Can we find a way to 6 wins? There's just so many question marks.
Yeah. And you talk about the fact that, these are kids, right? You've got a locker room full of 18 to at most like 24-year-olds. They're still emotionally able to be, motivated or unmotivated. And that can have an immense impact on the performance on the field on a Saturday. And I think, when you look at Some of these teams, like, I mean, obviously Colorado State has some talent, but they're not, at the level of most Power Four teams or anything like that. They're maybe a few guys that have played pro on that roster, right? And yet, that lack of talent, if you're going against a more talented team like a Fresno State, but you're motivated and they're not, any given week, you can have a letdown if you're Fresno State. And then that boost that Colorado State gets from that win, now they all of a sudden start believing in themselves, and who knows what they can do. And we've seen it time and time again. I mean, maybe they do that one time, and then the rest of the season is kind of more of, what we've seen thus far. But I think that's important. That's the key difference between college sports and professional sports. Even though we're treating this like really a pro game anymore, these are still kids. These are like babies in the grand scheme of things. And so it's that much more difficult as a coach. You're trying to manage all of these emotions of these kids. And also some of these kids are making millions of dollars a year. Yep. And they can just opt out for next year if they want, like it's just, and I was very for NIL and the transfer portal, and I still am in theory, but gosh, what a difficult job.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Creekmore, I'm going to go back to back on you. I got a couple questions in the same realm. So first question, Game 5, Detroit Tigers, Seattle Mariners. I actually had the opportunity to play rec softball match. Got there. We're about to kick off the softball game. Bottom of the ninth. We're all watching on my phone. I've got in the dugout. We finished a 6-inning game in a little over an hour. The game was still going on. Drove about 40 minutes home to Castle Rock. Game's still going on. Got to watch the final ABs with the wife at home, and I mean, just overall thoughts on the cinema and the theatrics of what I think has to be up there of one of the best baseball games, if not one of the best sporting events of all time.
I mean, I watched. I don't think I started actually watching that game until like the 7th or 8th inning, and yeah, I mean, just an unbelievable game in general. And at the same time, you just saw on full display two teams that were getting themselves, and talking about like in extra innings, especially getting themselves into great spots, one or two guys on base with nobody out, and not managing anything. And not managing anything because total unwillingness to play small ball. And in some cases, I think an inability. I mean, you got guys that are playing at this level that cannot bunt. They couldn't put down a bunt to save their lives. And I mean, one of those situations, and I think Victor Robles can put down a bunt. He goes to put down a bunt and gets hit right in the fist. And I mean, that was
what do you think about that call?
I didn't think it hit the bat, in my opinion. I didn't think it did, but it was controversial, certainly, because
bunting, it's your fault if you get hit in the fist. That's on you. That's a strike.
And generally speaking, I think the reason why they thought that it wasn't, I mean, if you're swinging at a ball that hits you, then that's a strike, right? But like, he was pulling the bat back, and so, but that was also, to me, that was part of why he got hit,
right?
Because he wasn't trying to bunt it anymore. He was trying to like pull the bat back. You can't run away from a fastball. It was still coming right at you. So anyway, that game, there were points where I was like, neither of these teams deserves to win this game. Like, what are you doing? Like the Mariners, they would get two guys on base, nobody out, and have a pop fly out and then ground into a double play. And I think there were, I could be wrong, but I think there were 3 of those extra innings that ended with a grounding into a double play. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? They are literally like, the game is there for you. And you could, and obviously eventually they took it and they won, and that was that.
That's crazy. You haven't even brought up Skubal yet. Setting MLB record, I believe, 7 strikeouts in a row in the play. Like, unreal effort.
Well, and I mean, and Tarek Skubal is, as I've said, he's a witch. I mean, that guy is unbelievable. Um, the things that he can do, because he's not just, when you look at some of the legendary pitchers of old, you had guys that were, could really fire it up there, and you had guys that were more like Greg Maddux, who he was a pitcher. Tarek Skubal is a hybrid because he can get it up over 100 miles an hour, but he also has just nasty breaking stuff, and he is pinpoint with his accuracy, so he can move stuff around. I mean, you just don't, when he is on, basically he's unhittable. And unless you can just like get to him through a little chink in the armor, like you're not going to get to him. And we saw that time and time again. And yet, just like time and time again, he pitches a gem, and the Tigers offense cannot pick him up, and then leaves the door open for the Mariners, and they win. Yep. And then now, unfortunately for Tigers fans, it sounds like negotiations this offseason are going to be pretty tough with Tarek Skubal. And, chances are good that he's going to be pitching in a major market. So, sorry, Detroit, your window shutting.
You get 1 year, you get one postseason run, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a bummer. But yeah, that game was definitely up there for me, in just like the greatest games that I've ever watched. Wasn't my favorite game because it was so maddening and so
aptitude,
so boring. And at the same time, you look at like the Detroit bullpen and their ability to get guys to ground into a double play in clutch situations was pretty clutch on their part. I mean, you could argue that, but my God, yeah, that game, that was one of those games where I'm like, they really need to bring back the ghost man on second for playoffs, because like this just. And then my thought was, what a disadvantage going up against Toronto now for whichever of these teams wins.
Right.
And then,
Well,
the Mariners go on the road and take the first two. But
yeah. That leads into my second question, and we'll get there. I'm going to bridge into it. But baseball being such a pitcher-heavy sport, I mean, I think it was, and I'm misquoting here, but 500 pitches from the Detroit pitchers. Not really sure how many came from Seattle, but to go and turn around and play a game 48 hours later as a novice bettor, that seems like blood in the water. I'm betting the mortgage, honey, on the Toronto Blue Jays. Thank goodness I didn't. But you look at those options, especially in baseball, for these bullpen games. What is, like, talk to the listener a little bit about, just the fortitude, first of all, of these pitchers to continue to pitch and offer up pitches, and how long it takes for them to recover. We know starters go every 5 days, but for a bullpen to be that taxed, to have bullpen games in the playoffs, as I'm into baseball. I've been out of baseball for the better part of a decade, with the Rockies being absolute trash. I would be weary as a fan to be like, my team's doing a bullpen game. We're going to throw out a bunch of pitchers 1 inning at a time and hope we survive. Give us some knowledge on that and your thoughts.
Yeah, my issue with the bullpen game is, in the regular season, sometimes it's just necessary. Sometimes it's better to do a bullpen game than it is to, and it's a plan, right? You have a plan to maybe use these 5 guys, and this is going to be the guy that opens the game for you. And so it's not like they're just like, well, who do we throw up next? This guy's about out of gas.
They're rolling dice at the end of it.
It's not like that, but like, and it's a little bit of a hybrid thing in the playoffs, because what we're seeing is they're putting a starter out there, and then if things look at all funny, he's out after 2 or 3 innings. That's different, because you're not taking one of your frontline starters and doing that in the regular season most of the time, unless he is just getting shelled, right? So it's tough. My bigger thing is, like, with a longer game like the one we were just talking about, is when you've made all those pitches, you've depleted everybody, and you've gotten into some of your starters. So you've made it so that those guys have less rest. And again, you go back like 100 years, and you talk to like the two pitchers on whatever team, and they're like, "Yeah, I pitch every other day." I don't know what you're talking about.
150 to 180 pitches a
We
day.
don't. You count your pitches? What do you like? What do you mean? Like Nolan Ryan? Like, I mean, he was still playing relatively recently, and that guy, like, they weren't worried about pitch count. And I think it is important. I mean, especially with the occurrence of just blown elbows and whatnot. But I just, it's tough as a fan, certainly when you've got an elimination game. You're like, the season's on the line, and we're gonna try to duct tape this thing together and see if we can get through it.
I just see like an NHL game, an NHL team being like, we're going to throw out our our e-bug, emergency backup goaltender, and we're going to give him 10 to 15 minutes, see if he can survive the first. Then we'll go to our AHL goalie, and then we'll throw our backup in for the third. Like, it just sounds crazy. It's
Yeah.
bizarre.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, I mean, you see these offenses pick up their pitching staffs, and it sort of ends up not mattering. Like, I mean, in that game, again, Detroit, threw Scooble out there. And it's part, and on the one hand, you're like, well, what does it matter who we throw out there? We just have to try to figure out a way to keep this game close until Scooble's done, because we're probably not getting to him. And, again, they did. And then, you're just drained. And now you look at that series, and it's now even at 2-2. And I think the team that gains the momentum late is usually going to be the team that wins. And so even though Toronto just looked not great in games 1 and game 2, now it's even. And if you're the Mariners, you're like, oh, crap. They're putting up crooked numbers every other inning here. Like, we're on the mat, and we need somebody to call this thing. And I feel bad because, like, it was a couple days ago that I said that I thought the Mariners were not only going to win this series, but they were going to win the World Series. And now it looks like, yeah, I mean, you probably got to bet on the Toronto Blue Jays to get through this series. But it's just, I mean, when you're talking about bullpen games and managing a pitching staff, it's so different from how it used to be even 10 years ago. And I think there is, to a degree, there's some over managing, some over coddling of some of these staffs. And then you get into the playoffs, and oftentimes that goes out the window, and you say, well, we're going to use this reliever for 2 innings tonight because we need the extra certainty. And we're going to let this guy throw the most pitches he's thrown all year tonight in the playoffs, and we're going to count on him. Or, I mean, you see guys when it comes to the starting rotation, we're going to have this guy go on 3 days rest, because we think he's that good. We think this game's that important. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. In the end, the guys that are going to get criticized are going to be the losers. But as a winner, however you have to win, you win.
Just win, baby. Al
Just
Davis.
win. He did not do or say a lot of things that you can respect today, but that was one that I think as fans, even like for me, for example, the last couple of weeks of college football, I've just been like gone through this emotional roller coaster throughout a game where I'm like, fire them all, burn it all, it's over, we suck. And then at the end of the game, you're like, did we just win that game? All right, just win. And
you know what? I feel like you just read a sequential of my tweets during ads games.
What are we doing? Why did we get this guy? Oh my God, what a goal.
What a goal. 81 to go.
Okay, here we go. We're back. So on that same topic for you, Dodgers obviously look World Series bound again. Are they beatable?
Yeah, they seem like that team. I was being a Rocky fan and growing up with Coors Field just being covered in blue for home games when the Dodgers came to town, and just watching them consistently win and pushing them to that game 163 that we did. I don't know, was that 8 years ago now? And having that chance of being like, we are just win a game in Chavez Ravine, get our one division crown. Let's prove, and then just cannot get over that hill. They're just that evil empire. The stadium is junk. We can say a lot about their fan base beating up on San Francisco Giant fans and just don't have the greatest connotation about them. We see LA logos all around town here in Colorado. They're just unbeat. They're a juggernaut. They know how to play situational baseball. They have, like we've talked about earlier in the show, Dave Roberts, who is not afraid to tell anybody in that lineup to lay down a bunt. I'm sure it's something that they're working on in the batting cages, the situational baseball, not to mention their star Japanese players that are just at a different level, that ice cold water in their veins. Um, Yunobu going, 9 complete the other day. You've got Otani going yard. He's pitching. Where's the weakness in their lineup? You have a guy like Max Muncy, who I feel like has been in the league for 37 years, who looks like your average beer league player that shows up, throws down a case of Busch Light, heads out to the right field, hangs out, talks a lot of smack to the other team, and then just hits bombs. Just goes yard every time he's up and backs up his trash talk. But in the regular season, is just garbage. Strikes out. You're like, how is he still on this team? And then every time you look at the gosh darn box score this October, it's been Muncy RBI, Muncy base hit, a bunch of their role players getting base hits, Freddie Freeman. I mean, it's insane. And they know that they're going to make the playoffs in a pretty down NL West, that they need to be mediocre at best. Then you go on a couple runs, beat up on the Rockies, beat up on the Diamondbacks, beat up on, little brother, the Padres, and then, of course, the Giants. And it's demoralizing as a fan of the NL to be like, hey, the Mets put together this super team, can't get by them. The Phillies, Schwarber does everything he can to willpower that team back into the series, can't get by them. And then you look at the Brew Crew that won the most games, put together a storybook season, been under the radar. But again, everybody's like, well, you got to get through the Dodgers, and we don't think that's going to happen in a 7-game series. Down, up 3-0 to the Brew Crew now. Who's going to stop them? I thought it would be similar to you. It'd be a magical run from the Mariners, playing with house money, just playing with that chip on their shoulder, never making it to the World Series, a fan base that is just ready to erupt for them. And now you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, putting it, best of 3 series. So when you look at who's left, obviously Brew Crew are still theoretically alive, but that series is all but over. I think it's going to be a time thing. If the Dodgers do sweep, if the other series goes 7, are they going to have a little bit of that Rockies fatigue where it might be too many days off? And can they simulate those games and kind of that same aura? Being back-to-back champions, or defending champions, I should say, already crowning them champs. That's what they do to you. Being defending champs, I don't think that's something they're going to have to worry about. Until a team can show that they can beat these guys 4 out of 7, man, I think we're going to have to see another LA parade, another gold patch on their uniforms to start opening day next year, and just more of the same from this Dodgers crew.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the only thing is, and I mean, you talked about little brother San Diego, and like, it's unfortunate for them because of course they like do everything they can do within reason. I mean, they had a pretty high dollar roster. They're pretty stacked. There's just too much when you're just like, you're playing that close to the fan, and the fan being the Dodgers.
Right.
There's not many mistakes you can make, and the Dodgers will just capitalize. And so it, like, I don't know if you watch The Walking Dead, but it feels like, Negan's got the Brewers right now, and he's getting ready to get old Lucille out and just beat them to death. I mean, like, that's what it feels like. And I'm sure that if you're a Brewers fan, that's how you're feeling right now. Now, of course, miracles happen in sports. That's why they play the games. But yeah, I'm with you. Unfortunately, I don't see much of a weakness there. I'll be rooting real hard for Toronto if they end up finishing the series against the Mariners. And if they don't, if the Mariners win, I'll be rooting real hard for them. Toronto has they're like Cleveland North right now. They've got like half of their team once played in Cleveland. So it's easy to root for those guys, but and it's easy to root for the Brewers. God, it's easy to root for them, especially, when they're just north of the Cubs, and Cubs get all the fanfare and attention, and the Brewers are just this working class squad of, anyway.
Oh, right.
Anyway,
I think
yeah,
you can sum it
it's
up with
probably another Dodgers World Championship, most likely.
yay.
And there was much rejoicing. Yeah. Ugh,
Perfect. You ready for question 3? You just want to go back to back to back?
that was your question.
Yeah, you're up. Oh, that was mine. That was mine. Woo!
That was your
Dodgers really
question.
brought me down. Dodgers
What
brought
are
me
you
down,
doing?
man.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I don't want to see another. Let's get off this topic. Hey, in terms of that, this is something you've dealt with, as you've traversed and lived across the country here. But in terms of growing up, it was easy to flip on the WGN, see the Cubs, TBS, see the Atlanta Braves, and then lots of regional sports networks. Growing up here in Colorado, you could flip. They were part of cable. With cable really being a thing of the past, Dish, DirecTV really not being the once triumphant giants that they were. Curious how you're watching sports. Right now with a team in the Avs that are odds-on favorite to win the Cup, NBA, Denver Nuggets. Man, I tell you what, if you're a betting and you want to put down some high odds on a plus 900 team, throw a couple $5-10 on the Nuggets because that team is going to be a juggernaut and just a wagon this year in the NBA. But I have to pay $20 a month to a separate app to watch both those teams play. It's not a channel, it's an app that I have to download to my TV, which, man, do I continue to find out more and more on this podcast how old I am and how off my lawn I sound every single episode. But will the RSNs make a comeback? What does the future of sports look like for being able to see like such a consumptive model, but a lot of nickel and diming to just see our teams play?
Yeah, I think I mean for me, I abandoned cable as it is I don't know, probably more than a decade ago. But that was partially because it was just so expensive. And so just like limping along and using a friend's credentials to get in to use the Fox Sports app or the Big Ten Network app or any of that stuff. I've been doing that for a long time, and I mean it was probably, I don't know, 5 years ago that I started just doing the YouTube TV thing. I've tried Sling. Sling, in my experience, just doesn't have the channel lineup. And I mean, for me, the only reason I'm getting it is for sports.
Right.
So all I really care about is what's available for sports for me. And I mean, the luxury is when it comes to college football and college basketball specifically, that's what I care about the most when it comes to that. The access to like a Nebraska game, I can almost always get that. Every now and then there will be a game on like Peacock only or something like that. But I mean, ratings really matter. And Nebraska fans show up and show out. So, I mean, if you are a network, you know that if I air this Nebraska game in this primetime slot, I'm going to have viewership. Whereas that's certainly not true for a lot of other teams, and a lot of teams that are, really, really good, better than Nebraska, don't get the same viewership and don't get the same ratings. And so it makes it easier for me. But what I usually do is I've done YouTube TV from the beginning of football until the end of college basketball. And then I have, however many months that is in between where I've got nothing. And I've just got streaming apps to watch other stuff. I've had MLB TV for many, many years. And so I've had access to that regional sports network that has changed hands three or four times in the last decade when it comes to Cleveland. It was Sports Time Ohio, which was owned by Fox, and then it was Fox Sports Ohio, and then it was Bally Sports, and then now the big thing for me, because again, I do watch so much baseball, and I've been able to do it via that app. Now ESPN has purchased the rights to that, and so now we're heading into some unknown territory for next year for baseball. Inevitably, I'm going to find a way. But the thing that I care the most about now is just the quality of my internet connection.
Right.
And if I've got an internet connection that can handle the bandwidth needed to be able to run like 4K sports, because of course, once you've had 4K, it's hard to go back. I have a large screen TV that is not a 4K TV, and if I stand up close to that TV, I'm like, this looks terrible.
You ever
Like,
watch some of those old NFL playoff games from '96, and you're going, "How did we? How is this
how did we watch it on instead of a widescreen? We watched it on this, and a screen this big in some cases. Like, how did we do that? And I have my opinions on that. One of those being that the broadcasters were so good back then
So
that you were seeing the little TV, right? But like you were hearing these incredible legendary broadcasters really paint a picture for you. And so it was working in tandem. Now you've got some of these broadcasters that are just like, well, you can see the game, so I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. That's why we love radio so much, because radio is still about painting that picture. But yeah, for me, again, like there's an app for everything. Some of the streaming apps are starting to buy on to different things, like, with Apple TV having the rights for Major League Soccer, for example.
right.
I don't think that's a bad thing, because a lot of people have Apple TV, and it makes sense for them to be able to partner up with a lower level pro sports league that they can help get, more attention and more access for that, right? As opposed to, it wasn't that long ago where if you wanted to watch out of market stuff for your team that is in another market, you were having to pay for, NFL Sunday Ticket, which was expensive, or, any of the similar options that were on DirecTV or Dish Network for whatever pro sport it was. That has, I think, become a thing of the past. And you're seeing like Sunday Ticket, they've started to offer the standalone where you can just stream it. And they're doing that because there's so many people that have abandoned their platform and have said, well, I'll just find a way to get my games, however I have to do it. And they're like, well, we better rush to offer that as a standalone package now.
Right.
And so you're going to have a way to watch. I mean, sports is big business. You're going to have a way to watch. If you're, and like you and I have talked about, we watch a lot of sports on our phones because our kids are the ones that control the TV. And so I've got, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse on the big screen. And then I'm sitting here, got the kid on my lap. I've got the phone right here, and I'm watching whatever I'm watching. And I honestly, it is what it is. I mean, and then you get those times where it's like, I'm going to watch this on the big TV, and parenting, obviously, but just like, yeah, I'm not controlling during, if I want any piece, we're going to get to what they want to. It's been what are your so far?
Pretty closely. The Ravens at 1-5, looking like they're just trying to get to next season as quickly as possible with Lamar Jackson being hurt. You have the Detroit Lions, which I really thought were going to go into Arrowhead and just take care of the Chiefs, and Chiefs are looking to start and come back and being that team. We are who they thought they were, but on the end of their championship window, right? Like they have some injuries that they've dealt with, still trying to cultivate that magic. They're not as inevitable as they once were. They won a lot of one-score games this year, and that just hasn't been the case this season. So I think there's been a lot of changing of the guard where you're looking to see like teams like the Broncos. Sean Payton, coach of the Broncos, made a bold statement at the beginning of the season that said the Broncos are one of 7 teams that can win the Super Bowl. And I think they're, of all the teams I coached for the Saints, this is probably one of my best teams that I've coached. And of course, that gets Denver all heated up here. The talk shows were all about it. We're going to the Super Bowl. But as one of my least favorite Denver teams, they haven't impressed. The defense has been there, but Bo Nix has grown up and then he's been down, and then they haven't. They're still keeping the harness on him. He's shown trouble with the long ball. So I think the Broncos will be interesting this week as they welcome the G-men into Mile High to see if Jackson Dart's going to continue his magical run. I think you look at a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's been a pretty easy team in pick'em leagues the last several years to just chalk out L's left and right. They're playing some good football. Trevor Lawrence is slinging the ball. You've got some excitement, with the Heisman Trophy winner. You just have some things building in Jacksonville where I think they're a really interesting team and an interesting division. The Colts quietly with Daniel Jones, they just seem to make the play every single week in and week out. Daniel Jones has taken this team and really made them a contender, leading the AFC right now in terms of winning percentage. So don't see that drop. I feel like they have a really favorable schedule. They have that third place, second or third place schedule, I believe, from last season. So favorable matchups coming down the pipe for them. The Steelers. You continue to look at the Steelers' record. Now I know they lost last night to the Bengals, but they just continue to have winning records. I think as much as I don't like him personally, Aaron Rodgers has stabilized and gone to a team where they just have this winning pedigree in a down division with the Bengals, losing Joe Burrow and the Browns being the Browns and just the AFC North being just this gauntlet of muck, if you will, where the Steelers just always find a way to grind it out. So I feel like the AFC side, you've got to say the biggest surprise for me has been the Colts, just going 5-1, looking really strong, a scary team that can beat you a multitude of ways. A strong defense, strong offense. They're very balanced. That's going to be a tough team as you continue to look down. Looking for that Broncos to have a signature win. They go and beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. Nice come from behind. Their second win ever as a club, coming back from 17 in the fourth quarter, and then just laying an absolute egg over in London. That might have been the most boring football game I've seen in the last 5 years. And they, a win's a win, as everyone here in Denver will say. So that's the AFC side. I would love to see the Colts and Broncos become that top heavy and really make a run with some new players, getting some opportunities. I think in the NFC, you're looking, I'm waiting for the Bears to break out. They just look like they're on that precipice of making a big turn. If Caleb Williams getting involved, Adunze is looking great and being their star wide receiver. A lot of moves there where the NFC North and putting some pressure on the Lions. Looking at the Packers as being kind of disappointing. It seems like they're kind of like in that Broncos standpoint, waiting to break out. And then I think the other big shock for me is how good the 49ers are without Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy was a massive overpay. I think it was a panic buy from John Lynch and that management group to go, hey, Purdy led us down this magical run. And now, unfortunately, one, I think he's been scouted. Even when he has played, he hasn't looked great. And two, he's become more and more injury prone and has shown that he's getting beat up in every hit. He's kind of like fine China. There's a lot of things going wrong. The Rams and Seahawks, man, just fun teams to watch. I feel like there's a lot of talk on the Rams being a Super Bowl contender. Not ready to crown them that just yet. I feel like they've got some movement, but Rams, Tampa Bay, Seahawks, like just fun teams to watch, man. They just don't quit. None of those teams give up. They're always in it. They're throwing up points. I feel like on Sundays, those are good teams. So NFL's been fun. There's a lot of blue bloods. The Lions, Chiefs trying to make their way back. The Ravens obviously tanking with the plethora of injuries that they've had. But a lot of fun new names and teams to watch out. Colts, Broncos, the Buccaneers, and then we'll throw the Seahawks and Rams in there as just some dark horses to make a run through as we get to the middle part of the season.
Yeah, the comment about the 49ers and Brock Purdy, I mean, I don't wholly disagree. I think a lot of how they've been able to weather the storm with injuries is Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Um, I think that that's a well-run organization. I think Kyle Shanahan is an elite coach, and he's able to like take whatever he's got. He can put together a game plan, and he's got guys that can execute. On the other side, I think Mac Jones, um, it turns out, is pretty good. He's a pretty good player. He's tough. He's looked good. I think there's going to be. It's reasonable to think maybe not this year. When they get Purdy back, that there will be a QB controversy or a competition. But I think in the offseason, you've got to wonder if there's going to be some kind of competition there where it's not a given that Brock Purdy is going to be the starter. Um, I just think with Brock Purdy, he's a winner, man. I mean, and they both are. They both
Man,
come
I
from
like
winning.
him. I'm cheering for him. I hope he bounces back. It just feels like when Purdy's in, he's just getting banged up.
But when you look at the guys that they've had to play without, I mean, look at that receiver core depleted. I mean, Ricky Pearsall looks like he is a good player and hasn't been able to stay healthy. You lose Debo in the offseason, who was sort of the straw that stirs the drink for that offense in many ways. Um, so far, knock on wood, Christian McCaffrey has been healthy enough for especially how hard they lean on him. And they do have to lean on him. I mean, without George Kittle in there, I mean, you really are depending on guys like him. Kendrick Bourne. I mean, I love Kendrick Bourne because he's a Portland native. I think that's super cool. But like, I mean, he's a journeyman, like career number 3 or 4 kind of wide receiver, and you're depending pretty hard on him. Jawan Jennings, who has been up and down in his career and has been hurt and et cetera. I just like, and then defensively without Nick Bosa, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not a huge Nick Bosa fan, like as far as like who he is as a person, but like he is a beast on the football field. Like you're without that guy, like there goes your pass rush. Like it's gone. So like they are just like clenching and holding it together. And for me, they're the team that like I wonder if they can get out of that division this year with how competitive, the Rams and the Seahawks have looked. I don't know. I think the odds are pretty long there.
Those division games are going to be barn burners.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it really depends on who's healthy to an extent and all that. But yeah, oof. But it has been fun. It has been interesting. I have been, you know, very excited to see Jacksonville, finally kind of rising up a little bit in that South Division. And love the Daniel Jones in Indianapolis. I mean, Tyler Warren, I think, has been a big part of that. I've actually started, going back to fantasy football. I have a team that has Jake Ferguson and Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren was the guy that I had slotted as my starting tight end, and now I'm playing Jake Ferguson and Tyler Warren as my tight end and my flex
There you go.
because they're both producing. Like they're both top targets in their respective offenses. So like, yep, I'm going to treat you like a wide receiver. So, but yeah, Tyler Warren, I think the big one there, like a lot of people were like, well, can he do what he did in college in the NFL? I don't know. Blah, blah. He's a beast. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Just
Yeah,
fine.
just a beast. And they are really like you love the Daniel Jones leaves New York, and this is true for so many guys that leave New York, and then they find that boost somewhere else, and it turns out, yeah, actually, I am a pretty good player.
Stability.
Yeah, it's when you're playing in, for the New York Giants or the New York Jets or some of these franchises that they just really don't do a good job of putting the right guys around their stars, and it's tough. It's tough. Anyway, well, I guess we can move on to the final phase of the show here. Um, as we get ready to send you off into the day to enjoy birthday festivities with Kelly, and the rest of us will just be slogging through, just no birthday festivities, nothing like that. But I there's been a lot on TV. What have you been watching?
The fam and I are watching Survivor, season 49, coming up on season 50. It's fun for the kids. It has gone, a little bit more on the theatrical side, not so much gameplay of old Survivor years when it first begun. Definitely more story to it. The kids love it. They're involved. They're sad when their team loses, their tribe loses, and their favorite players. So that's been our family show. Together, the wife and I have been watching Only Murders in the Building. Man, this season's been great. I really feel like it's there. It's catching steam. It's equal parts funny, equal parts just trying to figure out the murder and the mystery about it. The connection between just the characters on the show and the quick wit, man, it's just good TV. It's a nice, easy show to end the evening with, and been kind of lighthearted while we just painfully wait for Stranger Things to finally come out.
Oh man, yeah, Stranger Things is right around the corner.
Nearly
We've
there.
um we've been watching well, we started the new season of The Morning Show on Apple TV last night. That show just never disappoints, man. I mean, just tense drama, all-star cast. We got through the first couple episodes and it was like, we went upstairs and got into bed like it was, it's time to go to bed, and Katie's like, "Are we gonna watch another episode?" It was like 11 o'clock, and I'm like, "No, probably not." But like, yeah, that's a telltale sign for how good the show is. I've also started. I'm 3 episodes into the new Ed Gein biopic on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, that's man, it's part of the Monster anthology series. So they did Jeffrey Dahmer, and they did the Menendez brothers, and now it's Ed Gein. Charlie Hunnam
Okay.
has transformed into Ed Gein for this, and man, yeah, it messed up, just messed up.
Check that out. We were doing Black Rabbit, I think it was what it was
I
called.
heard that was good. Haven't seen it yet. Yeah, with Jason Bateman and Jude Law. Yeah.
Yeah, we're one episode in. A lot of background story, so not too much to report there. But the extended family loved that one. I think fall's the greatest time for TV. A little bit
Mm-hmm.
darker, a little bit earlier, kind of cozy up, find a good show to get into, and uh, you know, trying to balance a lot of our reality TV. We like all the cooking shows, so Hell's Kitchen just got fired up again. Always a good one to see Gordon Ramsay just chastise fellow chefs around the kitchen. But yeah, I'll have to check out some of those biopics. The Menendez brother one was wow.
Yeah, that was pretty messed up. But the Jeffrey Dahmer one was that was good. And then now Peacock has kind of picked up that bug. The serial killer thing is, there's just a lot of there's so many podcasts out there. Speaking of Only Murders in the Building, so many true crime podcasts and whatnot that especially the ladies, surprisingly, just really love this stuff. And yeah, it's messed up because it's real like that. It's a dramatization, but it happened, right? Like there was somebody that did that.
It's the wild part. You keep telling yourself there's a director, there's sound people, there's a lot. Nope, this is based on a true. This happened. Wow.
Yeah. 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 No, growing up thinking, the boogeyman's not real. He's not real. Vampires, not real. I have to tell my son, he's like, don't worry. Werewolves aren't real. Yeah. Yep. I know.
Like, well, you know what, son? Serial killers are. Good night.
Serial killers are a real thing. And, children are abducted off the street every day. And yeah, it's terrifying, truly. But then when they make it into TV, we watch it. So, anyway, well, we'll be back in a couple weeks. Enjoy the plethora of sporting events that we have going. I'll be watching the Nebraska game against Minnesota tonight. Hopefully another win for the Huskers, and hopefully we get to hang on to old Matt Rule in Lincoln for a little while longer, as his alma mater certainly comes calling here soon. So anyway, don't block the TV, and we'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.